Welcome back to the podcast and today's episode with me, Johnny Pardo. Today I welcome Joe to the show. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. And Joe's got an amazing 18,000 piece puzzle behind him. So I'm really impressed by that. Excited about that. So just a quick introduction to Joe. So Joe walks the sacred path of self-discovery just as many seekers do. With 30 years of sobriety and over 40 years of experience as a business owner, Joe offers a vivid and heartfelt account of his personal struggles and moments of despair. He shares the self-compassion practices that guided him through the deep emotional work needed to heal the toxic shame that once fueled his addictions. Today, Joe lives free from codependence, allowing him to follow the quiet wisdom of his heart. In doing so, he is creating a life rooted in love and abundance, a reflection of his deepest hope and truth. So, Joe, like I said, welcome to the show today. Glad to have you on and cover some of these things that I just touched on today. So, yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear, congratulations on the 30 years of sobriety. That's amazing. Be really interesting, first of all, to hear now that you're in this sacred path and you're walking this way. What got you onto the path of sobriety? Was there a big turning point for you that led you to that?
You know, it's kind of interesting how that works. I've been asked that question a lot, and interestingly enough, yes, February 13th, 1994, I'm living in an unfinished basement on a 2-inch piece of foam, not thinking a whole lot of it. You know, I was a pretty functioning guy out there, had a relatively successful business. A buddy of mine comes in just to hollering and screaming, and I'm like, Lincoln, what is wrong with you? He says, Joe, you're never going to believe what these blankety blanks want me to do. I was like, what? What could be so horrible? He says, they want me to go 90 days and go to 90 meetings and not drink. And I remember thinking back then, I was like, not drink? Like, who would ever not drink?
Mm.
And in that moment, it's right before my 31st birthday. I was thinking, like, when did I go 90 days without drinking? And I searched my brain. I was about 14, 15, something like that. It was just kind of a normal thing. I wasn't one of these slobbery fall over guys, but it was just all the time. And I say, okay, fine, I'm going to do it. 7 days later, addictions got me by the throat. I made those 6 days pretty easy. The seventh day, I'm literally sitting in a buddy's house, holding on to the chair. I call it white knuckling because every part of me was craving alcohol. And the drug of choice back then for me was marijuana.
Mm.
And the last thing I would have considered myself was a God guy. I mean, I wasn't anti-God, but the beliefs I grew up in, you know, this do what I say or I'm punishing you in hell concept. I just never could connect with that. So I kind of had that pack. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Well, in this moment, there was nothing I could do. I stood up just like this with my arms spread. I said, God, if I'm not supposed to drink or drug today, I need your help. Feel a rush of energy come through my body, a tear come out of my eyes, compulsion for drugs and alcohol gone. And
Wow.
my path, that was February 20th, 1994. Pretty intense journey from there forward, but wasn't thinking about it, never thought about it. And then that moment happened, 7 days later happened, and I've been on that path ever since.
Mm. So it kind of like something like hit you to really, really do that on the seventh day. And were you saying there was struggles after the 7 days, and was there anything that helped you work through those?
Well, you know what happened to me, quite honestly, was 54 days later. I'm driving home from a business trip from Florida, and I have these massive, just clear as a bell memories of some pretty traumatic trauma as a kid. Two 16-year-olds in a stick did some stuff to me when I was six that, you know, extremely hurtful. And prior to that moment, it just wasn't there. I didn't remember it at all. It was like from like turning on a light switch, and I just had this real big protector part in myself. So really, in that moment, which was mid-April, um, the next 7 years, I just pretty much closed my world down, walked out of a family business, kind of said goodbye to the friends I knew. Took the next 7 years to truly just go into what I say a modern day monk perspective. I lived on less than $3,000 a year for the first 4 or 5 years. And I just really went into pursuing the idea of giving a voice to that deepest part, whatever people call that. For me, over time, I learned to call it the inner child. But I really called it that, not because I had some real connect to that. It was just more that when it was explained to me that, you got to start being nicer to yourself than you've been. It was just easier for me to imagine myself as a little boy. And it was easier for me to be nicer to myself as a little boy than as an adult. And over that following 7 years, really just learned that concept. I learned about emotion. I learned about the feminine side of self. I learned about a spiritual connect through emotional being, that whole world. I wasn't looking for it. I mean, I have to be honest. I wasn't like a pursuer of truth or anything like that. I don't read. I just hurt all the time. I was just hurting emotionally all the time. I was really just wanting to stop hurting. And my path just kept guiding me down that road, and came out the other side with a lot of different beliefs that some people connect with, some don't. But it's worked for me, and here we are, 30 years later.
Mm. Oh wow, yeah. The inner child for me has been quite a powerful process as well. When you really, if you're loving and it's hard for yourself, it's finding that inner child within inside yourself. So love that, and then finding a part of yourself that you can really
Right.
connect to on a deeper level. It's amazing. Joe, I mentioned in your introduction that you live a life free from codependence. So
Yes.
what is codependence, and how have you been able to? Because people got maybe different interpretations or not sure. What is it for you, and how have you been able to do that?
Codependence for me is any type of action step, belief system, substance, person from the outside that you're trying to pursue okayness from. The right person, the right family, the right amount of money, the right job, the whatever it is. Trying to seek I call it okayness because some people might say serenity, some people might say love. I wasn't searching for any of that. I just wanted to feel okay in my skin. And if I'm looking outside of myself for an internal reason, for an internal solution, then I'm codependent on that
Mm,
thing, a woman, a job, or whatever. And how I got over it, how I learned how to move beyond it, is every time I would start writing out the voices in my head, called it first steps,
mm,
where any of the shame based voices, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm the wrong color, I'm too tall, I'm a guy, whatever the voices are, I'd write those voices down. And then I learned that the voices, those ego voices, are all basically connected, are created by a hurt little kid. So
mm,
I would hear the voices, I would write them down, and then I would go into a meditative state, more just I would visualize myself as a kid and I would listen. And I would ask, I did dual hand journaling where I'm a right-handed person. So I'd write out with the right hand. And then I would answer with the left hand. And every time I found myself needing something outside of myself, which I would say codependence, somebody to say I was great, somebody to say they love me, somebody that approved. Anytime I looked outside of myself, what I realized was there was a little kid in me that needed the adult me to give him that exact same behavior. So over time, I would journal. I'd ask my little kid, so what's going on today? How you doing? And
mm,
sometimes he would say fine. Most times back then, he never said fine. If I was listening, I'm hurting. I didn't like this. Somebody hurt me. Where's my dad? My mom's never around. And I always want to make sure because for people that are drawn to a show like this, such a powerful show, um, people have to understand that our parents, the generations prior to us, they did absolutely the best they could, so
mm,
it's never somebody else's fault. They created an environment from the emotional perspective that they were created in, bottom line. Well,
mm.
when people understand we're a multi-dimensional being, where we've all got a male part and a female part, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Yeah.
um, the male part is mental, physical. The female part is emotional, spiritual. Well, society didn't know in generations of the past how to embrace and empower the emotional side of self. Bottom line, where I grew up, big boys don't cry. And little girls needed to be seen, not heard. I mean, that was just the belief. In my world, it was, I'll give you something to cry about. So you just close it down. Um, so over that journey, and I do it now all the time. I mean, it's just a normal for me. Um, I give my inner child a voice. My workshops and things, it's all about giving a voice to the deepest part, the darkest part. And the deepest, darkest part is typically that hurt little kid. So when I hear him, I listen, then he's getting what I believed I needed from the outside world.
Mm.
I'm giving it to my inner child. And then when I interact with the outside world, I'm coming from a place of overflow. I'm giving to the world, not needing from the world.
Mm. Is and the inner child and connecting with him, is that something you, because I'm curious about your process with it. Is it something you still do to this day, or is it something you have to do intensely? Because I know you said at first it was like not fine and then it was fine. Is it something you still do now?
Every day,
Oh,
every day.
cool. Me
And I
too.
say every day because it's kind of like, do I move my left hand every day? Yes. Do I wiggle my ears and hit my, yes, right?
Mm.
It's a part of me. Now, the great news is it's not hurting anymore. My little kid's not hurting. Um, I went through it long enough. And again, I have to be honest, this is not a journey for the weak-hearted. It's not easy.
Mm.
That's why, a tagline I have is ask, listen, live. Ask for help from a higher power, listen to the depths of your child, and then live your life. Because a lot of this stuff, especially if you're on a true path of spiritual journey, which some people aren't, some people aren't. Some people are just their path is different. They want to work through some stuff, and everything else is good. Great, that's wonderful. We don't look for it, but if it's there, there's solutions. And for me now, I'll give you a great example. The book, you see my book back here, Healing Addiction, right?
Mm.
For 25 years, that book was called Your Inner Child Has Rights Too. It was this for 25 years. Okay.
Mm.
Well, I talked to Tom Freeland, he's my publisher, and this is exactly what he says to me. He says, I love that book title, Joe, but we can do better. I was like, really? Okay, great. You're the pro here, I'm not. So I agreed. Immediately after that call, what did I do? I got with my little kid. And I was like, how do you feel about that? That's my little kid on the front of the cover. How do you feel about him changing the book cover? And in that particular instance, my little kid was fine. Just no problem at all. Now, if that would have hurt his feelings or if he would have been upset or whatever, I would have just listened. Inner child doesn't run our lives. Our inner
Mm.
child, just like a child, I've got two boys, it just needs to be heard. And I listened and he was fine. So we moved on, different time. So I do it all the time.
Mm. I like that consulting the inner child. It's not a because and sometimes I do it even when I'm in like good places. It's like, oh, how are you feeling today? Just I'm here for you, like
Yes.
that kind of thing. Because
Yes.
there's this thing in personal growth that I totally have been caught up in, or the mental health space as well, where it's like I'm in my very very worst. Now I start working on myself. I'm like, no, it's an ongoing process for me. It's
Yes.
the muscle to trade every single day, like the emotions for me personally.
Yes.
So
Agreed.
I love that you say you still connect with your inner child, and even if he's
Yes.
fine, you're still doing those check-ins every day.
Sure. Sure. It's kind of like my boys. I've got an 18
Mm,
and a 13-year-old, right? When
mm,
they come in, they want to talk. They want to be heard. So I mean, ask either one of them, do they want to go to bed? No. But I listen, and they go to bed anyway. So I'm still the one as their adult making the decision. The inner child doesn't run my life. But if I don't listen to what he's got to say, then the little kid feels abandoned, neglected, or abused. Well, when a part of me feels abandoned and neglected or abused, right? I experience as the being abandonment, neglect, and abuse. It
mm,
comes from the inside out. So I just always stay in touch. I stay in contact. I can tell you sometimes, like I'll be watching a movie. I'll be watching some crazy movie, and I'm not a TV watcher, right? But I'll be watching a movie and my adult will have a viewpoint of the movie and my little kid will have a very different, scary, sad, whatever. So I look at it as a multi-dimensional being, just like I have 10 different fingers. I look at myself as a multi-dimensional being. And even my inner child, I've got a 3-year old, I've got an infant, I've got a 6-year old, I've got a 9-year old, all different ages from the years of work I've done. And I can tell you, it was for me, it was much easier to grieve the little kid that was 6, 8, 9, 10 years old. When I got older in this process, and I had a girlfriend at 17, 18 years old that kind of left for somebody else. And basically I was told to move on, stop thinking about it. Well, 30 years later, right? That part in me still needed to grieve. So
Mm,
I've got an 18-year-old in me that as an
mm,
adult, came up out of nowhere. I mean, I can't remember what happened, some movie or something. So I don't search for it when I'm not hurting, but a random movie, a random radio show, whatever. When I feel something in here uncomfortable, I immediately go in. How we doing? And I'm never, it's no different than connecting with my own children, my 18-year-old and my 13-year-old. It's the exact same thing.
mm, I love that, Joe. I want to, yeah, forget about I must admit, I forget about like the teenage version of you as well, and that person within you, like you touched on the 18-year-old as well, really important.
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the role of helping, you're helping people work through toxic shame to work through it and talking about fueling addictions.
Sure.
What's the link between shame and addictions?
The link between shame and addictions, and just so the folks that you are listening here, my role out there is awareness,
Hmm,
and then there are professionals out there
sure. Yeah.
that take it on, right? And if you're watching and you think you got a problem, you do. How big is the problem? That's between you and whomever. Search for help. The difference, um, if you're walking, if you ain't walking on water, I say this all the time. If you're not walking on water, right? You've got limiting beliefs. You've got shame. The difference between shame and toxic shame
Mm,
is shame is the type of voice in your head that says, I did pretty good on that test, but I should have gotten an A- versus a B+. That's kind of a shame-based voice, right? Millions of people live, and they live very satisfying lives because it doesn't run their life. Now, I've coached people in the past that are 6-figure earners that want to go to 7. And the only reason they're not at 7 is because of those limiting beliefs hold them back. Now, what's toxic shame? Toxic shame is more the voice that says, I got a B+ and I'm a complete loser because I should have gotten an A-. I didn't work hard enough. I'm stupid. And the toxic shame element is just a larger, more vocal, more paralyzing, aggressive voice that the only way to calm it down for most is to drink or to drug or to have sex or to have something, some vibration outside themselves to calm that down. Now, the one addiction of alcoholism, it's a bizarre one because it's kind of different than other things. There's an insidiousness to alcoholism, where most addictions, in my opinion, sex, drugs, alcohol, relationships, working out, you name it, it's more just I can't satisfy myself in here, so I have to do something from the outside. Um, Alcohol has some more components to it. The insanity of alcoholism is a little bit more complex to that. Someone can be in a pretty good spot, they still can't stop drinking. Um, but addiction in its source, it's there. You're in pain. There's
mm,
nobody out there who's living a blissful, connected life to a higher power and a little kid who's feeling good, who then says, "Oh, let's go out on a Friday night and get hammered." I mean, you just don't do it. You might go out on a Friday night and enjoy the taste of some wine, but you just don't.
mm,
So it's typically the behavior pattern of the external world, whatever that is. it's more of a red flag of hurt. I'll give you some examples. I'll give you a perfect example. You're a little boy and you hit a home run. You're playing baseball, you hit a home run. And instead of celebrating your home run, your dad says, you should have ran faster around the bases. So you grow up, that happened to me, man. You grow up and you say, what the F? I mean, what the heck? I hit a home run and all he can complain about is I wasn't running fast enough. And he wasn't there in the first, literally wasn't there in the first place. How did he even know I didn't run fast? So you're 11, right? You can't figure that out. As an 11-year-old, 10-year-old, 6-year-old, all you're looking for from mom and dad, like in this case for my dad, was approval. Wow, you did fantastic. But what I got was the other. So the belief inside was no matter what I do, there's something wrong with me. Period. Why? Because my dad said so at 11. So my whole life, right? It wouldn't have mattered. I could have made $1 million and internally I have that same voice. Not good enough. Not enough. Got to make two. I can make 2 million. Or I got $1 million house. Not good enough. Have to have a $2 million house. That's how it gets acted out. For girls even more than boys, but the same. A boy needs more a sense of empathy, a sense of attention, where little girls literally need the verbal accolades of their appearance. Honey, you're so sweet. Honey, you're beautiful. You look fantastic. They need it as a little girl, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? From their parents because they can't develop that on their own. The human psyche at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old doesn't have the ability yet to do it on its own, right? So it needs it from the outside world. But when it doesn't get it, what's it do? By the time she's 15, 16, she's looking for that attention. How does she get it? She wears the shorter skirts. She wears the blouse open a little bit more. Then when she gets that attention, she might pursue behaviors that she wished she hadn't in a physical way, always pursuing attention from the outside because at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, she never got it from the outside, which would have been her parents. So you got that little girl inside there that's saying, I'm lost, I'm lonely, I'm not important, I'm not pretty. Why am I not pretty? Because mommy and daddy never said I was pretty, so I must not be pretty. You have gorgeous models that no matter how much weight they lose, they look in the mirror and their brain says, I'm not pretty. That's not their doll. That's the little kids that they didn't get it as a kid. That's how it gets acted out. And if it gets away from people and there's too much there's too much of the activity, then it just amps the behavior. And then eventually you get powerless to it. And that's where you're addicted.
So being with that kid is really important for working through those things and working through that toxic shame.
Yes. And that's why I say, healing shame, what's healing addiction? You have to heal the shame that causes the addiction in the first place. You have to heal the hurt that causes the need for the substance, the action, the behavior. Now, again, I have to separate that from, I've got a business partner. He's 70 years old. Every third Sunday, he drinks a beer because he likes the taste of beer. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not about, it's whenever there's a behavior that you can't stop. People ask me all the time, Joe, how do I know if I'm addicted? Well, if you're asking the question, kind of birds of a feather, if it looks like a duck is a duck, there's a simple test. Whatever the it is, stop doing it for a month. Stop doing it for 2 months on your own. And if you can, and it's no big deal, great, probably not. If you can't, probably are. And what does that mean? Is that a bad thing? No. It means you're a spiritual warrior, that you're even asking the question. I have people around all the time. They don't even know to ask the questions. That's why I love these types of podcasts. Anybody watching a show like this, and anybody watching your show, right? They're a spiritual warrior right now, or they wouldn't be watching your show. They just wouldn't be. They're a uniquely different. Now, the great news is there's 1 billion people out there right now. There are. Well, that's why programs like yours are so important, because I don't know how many people watch your show. Let's say 100,000. But there's 1 billion people that need to be watching it, literally, because They're a warrior. They're a spiritual warrior. I see it all the time. I was just in South Africa doing a TED talk. It doesn't matter where I'm at in the country in the world. There's a whole new era of consciousness that there's people that are just waking up to that new thing, whatever's next. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, the concept of positive affirmation didn't exist. I mean, literally, when I was a kid, what's a positive affirmation? Didn't exist. Well, now anybody on a path knows it, and people are searching now. People that have been on this path for 10, 20, 30 years, they're searching for more information. And what's happening literally every day, and I see it all the time, people are giving mental answers for emotional questions. This is what I mean.
Mm.
I've seen interviews with famous people that are online a lot, right? And they say that the interviewer will say, "Well, what do I do about this sadness?" or blah blah blah. And instead of giving an answer embracing the sadness, the emotional part of themselves, they give an analytical answer. Well, you need to think differently. You need to think
Mm.
forward. You need to, and giving a mental answer to an emotional question, if it was that simple, everybody would do it and we'd all be better. But it isn't. You have
Mm.
to ask yourself the question, why are you feeling that in the first place? Where do you get the answer? Listen to the little kid.
Mm. Yeah, it's a very common one. It's very like, do this, this is this. It's like really hearing and going deeper into that body, into that
Right,
kid. Has
right.
worked for me. I love somatic practices myself because you really get to go into the body and breathe into that
Yes,
emotional
yes,
side. So no, I love that.
yes.
Joe, I know you got a ton more you deliver in the world, and I know you're helping a lot of people. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Sure.
Where can the listener find you if they want to find out more about you or your book? You know, you've written a book. And is there anything you'd like to leave us with today? Maybe something we've talked about, or something you just want to leave?
Sure, sure. You can get my book, and I've got several books coming out at all the major retailers, the Amazons and anything online like that. Anybody that wants a free copy of it right now to download, they simply go to spiritwalkers.com and you get a free download of it, a PDF. Within a few days, probably by the time this show airs, if they go to innerchild.info, it'll be going to the same place, innerchild.info. They
Yeah.
go right there and download the book. Um, what I want to leave with people, Johnny, is if you're watching this program, know that you're a spiritual warrior. And I'm not kidding. You're one out of the 100 before you even start searching for your own stuff because the masses aren't searching yet. So for anybody watching, know that you're uniquely different already. And then when you get on the journey, know that wherever you are, you're okay. If there's someone you can't forgive yet, that's okay. Forgiveness is not an action step, it's a process you take. And then the consequence of that process is that you forgive. Surrender, that's not an action step. Surrender happens as the consequence of taking spiritual steps. So if you're watching, if you're here, know you're uniquely different than the masses. You're one of the 1 billion, and there's 9 billion on the planet, right? So you're one of those people. Know that it's not supposed to be easy. It takes strength. I say to people all the time, ask for strength and courage. That's my spiritual message. I don't care what your religion is. My spiritual message is ask for strength and courage to whatever that being is in your life that you believe loves you. Call it whatever adjective you want. And then know that the process of enlightenment is truly about bringing awareness to the darker parts, bringing awareness to the parts you don't know is there. That's what enlightenment is. And, the end result, if you just keep going, life just gets better. And I'm a living testament of it right now.
Oh, amazing, Joe. You sure are. So thank you for everything you've shared today, and I'll be sure to link those up for the listener to grab some of your amazing materials. So once again, Joe, a massive thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Amazing. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.